Well, hello and welcome once again to another edition of Hude Progress Report. As always, we're taking a look at the progress being made in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We're also focusing on efforts. It's not just about reaching a destination, it's also about the journey. What are the different change makers doing to ensure that we get development and much more? As always, I am Amadine Ubewe. Welcome.
And I am Joan Eze. You're welcome. It's good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
And we also have with us here Paul Oladipupo.
Hi, Amadine. Hi, John.
Hi,
Hello,
Paul.
Hello, John.
You look very lovely in your blue gown.
Thank you.
So we're here once again to chat, of course, for progress. And as always, I always like to stress this, which is the fact that you shouldn't just expect to see the answers. I think part of the answers is the questions that came up and how it's being tackled. So again, we'll take a look at what's happening across the globe. Now, first to our first news item we have. In a significant stride toward economic unity, the African Union Commission, the AUC, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the ECA, and the African Development Bank, the AFDB, have jointly launched the 11th edition of the Assessing Regional Integration in Africa, that is the AREA 11 or AREA XI report. The unveiling took place at a high-level hybrid event during the 7th AU Mid-Year Coordination Meeting in Malabo. AREA 11 outlines bold practical strategies to deepen regional integration. It highlights the progress made under the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AfCFTA, signed by 54 countries and ratified by 48, and emphasizes the need for further reforms to unlock intra-African trade and cooperation. The report provides a comprehensive roadmap for establishing an African Continental Customs Union and common markets, calling for harmonized tariffs, policy alignment, and the removal of trade barriers. Key speakers including the AFDB Director General underscored the urgency of collective action to ensure the free movement of goods, people, capital, and services across the country. Two high-level panels explored the AfCFTA's role in unlocking Africa's economic potential and the critical function of regional economic communities in driving integration. Well, basically the event there seeks to check the progress of the implementation of the AfCFTA across Africa. And we still have that just about 48 countries have actually ratified this, which means that those are the countries where they are legally bound, or they have made themselves to be legally bound by the stipulations of this agreement. We still have a number who are yet to agree, but I think that's another matter. But I think one of the major concerns raised here is about sovereignty, in terms of when you agree or when you ratify this agreement, you have to do things that favor the collective. And so the question that arose and how they can further broaden this is about how can each country, while chasing their own personal national interests, integrate this with the regional interest. Questions arose about how, the EU, we have other regional bodies who seem to be a little bit more unified in their pathway forward, economically speaking. So when we talk about the benefits of the AfCFTA, we're talking not just about tariffs, where you are reducing tariffs for your neighbors and in the region, but then the next step is regional movement towards economic growth, where countries combine to do things. And it's not just about, okay, when you bring your goods here, we won't charge you so much. It needs to be more. So you saw at the events having things like movement of not just people, of goods, of capital. All these things matter when it comes to economic growth. And I think that was the major discussion there about what's the progress being made in these areas, where we're talking about the usual ones of tariff. Can we talk about the other ones? And I think we're watching to see how the region rises to the challenge of ensuring free movement, free trade, and increased prosperity for its citizens across board.
Whenever we talk about integration, we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about togetherness. And we have seen that most times, most African countries trade rather with the Westerners, outside the region. But this is a collaboration call that people in the same region, especially Africa, that's our major focus, come together to trade together, establish an economic growth. And that's very, very important. And that's where we have the African Trade Organization, where you can actually trade within two countries and make sure that, okay, I exchange this with you and make sure that we have an economic growth together. And this is something very important that even in the midst of, let's not go deep or go far in the global space. Let's deal with ourselves here in the same region. What can you do? What is that thing that you have in your own country or in your own part that I do not have? Let's trade it together and make sure that, okay, yes, let's come together to achieve that. So for me, that's a very, very good one. And coming from different editions, we've had the 10th edition where it was talking about service in liberalization, where a lot of infrastructures need to be looked into. Poor infrastructures where it was actually a very major complaint during that time, and also policies that need to be addressed. And then coming towards this end, where we're trying to establish a connection between the customs and the other party. And it's very, very important for Africans, African countries, to actually see this as a very big opportunity for themselves to make the African region a good place.
Well, the goal is to grow together, and I think that's one of the things that the SDG talks about, ensuring that we all grow together, ensuring that no one is left behind. And it's a great thing that we're seeing here, and it's coming at a critical time where we are looking inwards to see how best we can help ourselves to grow, how best we can help our economy, how best can we help our communities to grow. And it's very wonderful. In the coming days, we're expecting policies to be made to help, simplify all of these processes, especially breaking down or probably complete removal of some tax when you're exporting from one country to another, especially within Africa. Quickly, let's take a look at our verified voices and see what our verified voice is saying on this particular topic. This is one from Samuel. It says that our borders must become bridges with intra-Africa trade at 15%, just 15% versus 67% in Europe. We are leaving enormous economic potential untapped. And I think that's the summary of what we're discussing here. That if you actually look at Europe, for example, cost of transportation within countries in Europe is cheap, movement is cheap. You could see, and with that here, goods and also services, people as well were able to move in and out of countries that in Europe, and that's what we're talking about. If you can achieve that, someone broke down the cost of traveling within Africa and traveling outside Africa, and it will amaze you that traveling within Africa can sometimes be more expensive than traveling miles away across the country.
And just to commend some moves I've seen recently. For instance, Kenya recently opened up their borders specifically. I think the exception of perhaps only two African countries.
Yes.
Every other country, you can basically travel to Kenya and on arrival get what you need done. You don't need to get a visa. And imagine you're an investor or someone who wants to do business, hearing that encourages you to come. You don't have to go through a process.
It's not just business, even tourists as well. Those who love to go for vacations as well, they see that because at that moment now, there's no more, there's no extra. Exactly, it helps the economy at the end of the day.
All right, let's move to the next news item we have. The 47th session of the World Heritage Committee opened in Paris with a renewed spotlight on African cultural heritage as UNESCO considers the inscription of 4 new sites from Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, and Malawi. If approved, these additions would raise sub-Saharan Africa's total number of World Heritage sites from 93 in 2018 to 112. In her opening remarks, UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay emphasized the enduring power of heritage in uniting nations, noting that the World Heritage Convention now boasts 196 state parties, making it one of the most widely ratified international agreements. The session also highlighted the success of UNESCO's mentorship program, which since 2021 has trained 60 African heritage professionals, equally split between men and women from 46 countries. UNESCO is also unveiling powerful digital tools to support states in safeguarding their heritage. The new UNESCO site Navigator uses satellite data to monitor and manage risk to World Heritage sites, geoparks, and biosphere reserves. Additionally, the Dive into Heritage platform allows users to explore cultural landmarks globally through 3D modeling and interactive maps. These innovations, coupled with partnerships with African universities and institutions such as the African World Heritage Fund, ICC Rome, ICOMOS, and IUCN, are part of UNESCO's broader efforts to preserve Africa's unique heritage, promote sustainable tourism, and build local expertise in cultural conservation. This is what we're talking about the preservation of our heritage. It's very important that our heritages need to be preserved. And that's one of the key functions of UNESCO, making sure that there are sites. And this site is not like they just plant something there and just make it a site. There is something that actually make them sites. And that's when this cultural values are being spotted in these areas, and they said, okay, this is what make this particular place's sites. And speaking on, we've talked about the first news item where we talked about the African region, but we're still coming back to the African region, the sub-Saharan African region, and it's saying that if they've spotted 4 sites, that's the Cameroon, the Malawi, and other countries, to say that when these countries are being approved as cultural heritage sites, it's going to add up to our cadre. That's to say that Africans are already topping the list in making sure that we are already having that space in the cultural setting. And it's a good one for us. Imagine when countries in the world, and most of them, or 112 countries that are in the World Heritage sites, is coming from Africa. It's something that we need to really talk about, and we need to really commend ourselves for. And if looking at what UNESCO is doing is something that we should be happy about, and we look forward to more citing, getting more site, and for the 4 countries to be approved. And also we look forward to more countries being gotten in Africa to see that, yes, we have more of the heritage at the site.
Yeah, I think there's also been a lot of concerns that Africa as a continent, despite having so much cultural diversity, heritage, tradition, it's not one of the highest, or it's not the highest continent with World Heritage sites, UNESCO World Heritage sites. So in 2021, I believe as at then, Europe had the most of these. And yes, a heritage site also involves sometimes marvel of architecture and all of that. But there's an aspect, because it has a number of criteria. One that has to do with, it's called a World Heritage Site. It relates to culture. So there is an aspect of culture there. So the rhetoric or the question has always been, with the way Africa has so much deeply rooted tradition, why doesn't it rank higher? So when we see more additions to the World Heritage Sites and it's coming from Africa, it's an indication that we're spotting what's happening there. You won't go under the radar, and let's see what more you have to offer. So that being said, like you said, I think we need more canvassing, more open-mindedness to recognize what could be a World Heritage Site. It doesn't always have to be just a architectural marvel that's predominantly the developed nations would have an edge over. So culture doesn't only deal with architecture; it does do with traditions. We have a number. I think even in Nigeria here, we have 2 confirmed. There are also cultural sites like Igun Street and so on and so forth. So bringing attention to these sites will also bring more tourism. Will also bring more respect for tradition, and it's for someone who is looking to what's the word now, document culture, you can go around this place and see for yourself and see the richness.
Yeah, no doubt. And one interesting thing for me, I really love this period when they bringing in new heritage sites into the list, because always at that time my phone is usually buzzing, seeing breaking news of each heritage site that has been accepted as the meeting goes on. Because as the meeting goes on, it's really updated, and it's really amazing to see. And personally, I love going to visit them, see what they look like and all of that. And it's very interesting to see. And just like you mentioned, all of them usually will have a link to culture. They have cultural value. The people of the land and have something with it as regards their culture, has a connection with it personally. And most importantly, that was very, very beautiful to see. Quickly, let's take a look at a verified voice from UNESCO and see what they're saying on this particular topic. This is from UNESCO, and they're saying, breaking new inscription on the UNESCO #World Heritage List, Mount Mungali Cultural Landscape there in Malawi, and that's what it looks like. Very beautiful to see. You see all of these are places that we really need to visit when we start traveling, to see all of these things, live it, and embrace culture. And also, and one thing again I was also noticed that most of these things on this list are natural. It's not that they're abused by someone. Most of them are natural.
I think that's what makes them special, actually.
Exactly.
Indeed. And also, as much as I say we should, tradition, culture, the things that humans build with their hands, it's still something, because
it is something.
just like the 7 wonders of the world and things of that nature. So we should note that the approvals are coming in and have come in for a number of them. But we'll go on a break now. When we return, we'll delve into our final news item. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now, global childhood vaccination coverage remains steady in 2024, with 89% of infants worldwide, approximately 115 million, receiving at least one dose of diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis DTP vaccine, according to new data released by the World Health Organization and UNICEF. Of these, 85% completed the full 3-dose series. While the data marks modest progress compared to 2023, with 1 million more children completing the DTP series, it also highlights that 14.3 million infants received no vaccine at all. These 0-dose children underscore persistent challenges such as limited access, conflict, misinformation, and disrupted services that continue to hamper global immunization efforts. Despite encouraging developments, including the scale-up of HPV vaccinations and a reduction in under-vaccinated children in Gavi-supported countries, over 30 million children remain underprotected against measles, and large outbreaks have nearly doubled globally since 2022. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus and UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell called for urgent action. Anecdotal aspect of this, where we've heard experts when it comes to vaccination speak about a certain phenomenon that happens when vaccination or immunization is in process. So a parent takes a child to the hospital to get vaccinated, and perhaps you have another parent. The child comes back, exhibits some symptoms, which is common with vaccination, and the first one says, "Look, your child was fine when you left, and when the child came back, he has symptoms. So I don't trust this." But then simple information would let you know that these are sometimes side effects of vaccinations that go away in a matter of hours, sometimes less than a day. But you end up having a child who's inoculated from being harmed by preventable diseases. So I think the main key aspect for me with the call from WHO and UNICEF is that misinformation must be tackled, and it is not a thing to wait for the misinformation to spread. Like they say, a lie spreads around the world before the truth wears its shoes. So it is up to everyone in the sector, change makers, people in the health sector, doctors, physicians, public health professionals, to take the lead and educate people with explainers, with videos, things in their own language, things that will help them understand,
Yeah.
so as to prevent what is on ground, because you don't have to wait for misinformation to strike. It's already everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key takeaway for me
Yeah.
on how we could and have more of those children being covered. Because as we see from the data, some of them begin the process. Somewhere along the line, information got corrupted and it took
I think you've already picked up the point I wanted to buttress on. That's incomplete dose. And it brings me back to just the normal malaria parasite drug we take. You know, there's this saying, or it is true, that when you begin a particular medication and you don't complete it, it's not good for your body system. It builds, it makes the bacteria in you become stronger. I don't know how they really say that, but it's coming back to what we're talking about, completing the dose of when you start a particular journey in vaccinating your child, which is a good one. So when you've started it, just finish it up, because when you take the incomplete version of it, it's as good as you did not even take it at all. So it's very important. That's where the misinformation is there. Is supposed to be there to, it's not supposed to be there. That's what I mean. Like information, giving accurate information about how it should go, what should be done about vaccination or immunization is very important. And just the P-TAP is DTaP is very, very important to prevent those diseases, vaccine preventable diseases from childhood. And you know, whenever you don't take them from childhood, it becomes a problem by the time the child begins to, you know, get older. So it's very, very important for children to be immunized, especially during their infant form. And it will help them to have a good health and sustain them through life.
Yeah, like I mean, it's very interesting. There are two things I would love to point out quickly. There's the misinformation part, and also there's the part of not being informed.
Yeah.
You know, some parents take their children to the hospital, probably get the vaccine, and usually there's a timeline for all of these things. Some don't ask the right questions. When is the next time? When next again am I meant to come? And you know, I think there's one that has a very long gap. I think that 5 or 6 years. And usually after the child must have taken the first dose, they forget to go back for the second dose. And so I think if they are just properly informed, and also health practitioners should also help in that regards to you know, educate the parents and let them know. And again, and that one again is that I remember when I took COVID-19 vaccine and I had a very crazy reaction. My body was very hot. I had very high temperature. And, you know, a friend of mine was like, no, he's not going to take it no matter what, because of my own reaction. But that didn't even last for more than a night. And I was okay again. But the fact that he already has seen that reaction and he's not willing to, I had to literally beg him or even drag him basically to go and take the vaccine. But it's just more about getting informed. If you don't know something, ask about it, and not just ask anybody. Ask the right person.
WHO websites, UNICEF.
Read exactly. That's another thing. You could also read. If you don't want to ask, you could read. You could read somewhere. Let's take a look at our verified voice and see what our verified voice is saying on this matter. Take a tweet from WHO. It reads that in 2024. 89% of infants received at least one dose of the diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis vaccine. That's the DTP vaccine, and 85% completed all 3 doses. Global demand for childhood immunization is strong, according to the new data, and then that's what the graphics there says. So it's very important, you know, when you start something, just finish it. You mentioned of people who use drugs and then don't finish. I mean, I'm kind of guilty, but usually once we are okay, we tend to forget the drug and not complete the dose. It's not advisable. It's not good, because you get more prone to it. And then again, in some cases, if it's a virus or a bacteria, they don't clear off immediately, and then they come back even stronger in some cases.
But notwithstanding, I just want to still give an applaud to some of our medical team that actually still go from house to house to give this immunization to kids. There are people that are actually doing that, and kudos to you. And also, it's also a clarion call to other people to make sure, medical professionals, to make sure that, okay, this is also done to make sure that we have healthy children in the future.
Indeed. And just to reiterate, it's actually good news. 85% immunization coverage is a good thing. But, you know, in the path to progress, we're like Oliver Twist, we're always asking for more. So let's hope that we get more coverage. And when it comes to information, proper information, you can always go to WHO websites, UNICEF, and other trusted bodies of similar nature to get your first-hand information. But that's how we round off the program for today. Do join us next time. We will once again to take a look at progress being made in achieving development. See you next time. Bye for now. I am Amadine Obewe.
And I am Joan Eze. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm Paul Olatupo. Thanks for watching.